Hello and welcome to this presentation on energy tracking. This presentation is focused towards municipalities in Alberta, showing you some best practices for obtaining and using your utility data, but it's also appropriate for organizations who manage more than one facility. Organizations outside of Alberta should focus on step 3 of the 3 steps we're going to cover today. First of all, many municipalities are still wondering why they should invest the effort into tracking the energy of their facilities, and the answer really comes down to 3 points. First, without putting the energy data into a meaningful form, there's just no easy way to stay on top of the energy use and cost picture of each facility, since the information is inside spreadsheets of hundreds of thousands of numbers. With the typical expenditure on energy being on the order of $500,000, even for a small municipality, having this information is not just prudent, but can easily translate into cost savings of tens of thousands of dollars. And that leads directly into the second point. Tracking energy allows us to catch costly equipment malfunctions early. One example we've seen is where a building had both heating and cooling systems running at the same time. The occupants, of course, didn't feel any difference, but over the course of a few months, the waste energy amounted to thousands of dollars before the malfunction was detected. Lastly, regular tracking means you have the usage, cost, and emissions numbers at your fingertips whenever you need them, such as for reporting to City Council or doing a facility energy audit or retrofit, which increases your flexibility and responsiveness. In BC, this is even more relevant since municipalities submit for rebates and have filing obligations showing that they are tracking and reducing emissions, and I believe it's just a matter of time before the remaining provinces implement similar climate change initiatives. Now, once you obtain and summarize your data, you can create outputs such as these where we see at a glance which facilities account for the greatest costs. Here the graph on the left. And therefore to see which facilities are the primary candidates for energy reduction measures. And in the other graph on the right, we can see the current usage compared to historical values and environmental factors to easily identify usage spikes and calculate the return on investment of energy savings projects instead of leaving that to guesswork. Now, just to give you a brief background, I work with Arctic Fox Energy Tracking, and we've been tracking the energy of many cities in BC, including some of the largest ones in Greater Vancouver, for over a half-dozen years. We recently set up the town of Valley View in Alberta with monthly energy tracking, which gave us the opportunity to work closely with the energy data provided by the AMSC and TransAlta and others to construct a report on energy usage from 2004 to the present. Since this report is updated each month, we determined an effective system for obtaining, updating, and extracting meaning from this data, which is what I want to share with you today, using Valley View as a case study, which they kindly gave us permission to do. So the first step in tracking your energy is to obtain the raw digital data from the utility provider. Most municipalities procure at least their electricity from the AMSC, so we'll demonstrate how to obtain that specific data. After logging into your account, you will be presented with a page that looks like this. We need to obtain 6 files. Firstly, cumulative metered or DCM power, interval metered or DIM power, power delivery charges, energy charges, the load factor report, and the power factor report. So first we'll download the DCM file, which has all of the usage figures for all of the meters. We start by setting the date to download the last 6 or 12 months of data and click Continue. Then click Download CSV, which gives you the raw data in a spreadsheet format. We just have to click in the box that appears, again CSV, and save the file to our computer. Next, we follow the same process for the interval meter data file, setting your options as shown here. Now I should mention these slides will be available to you after the presentation for future reference. So in the case where we're doing the same steps again and again, we can speed through those sections. So we do repeat this process to download the delivery charges file and the energy charges file. For load factor, there's one extra step. Once you select the current month and click Continue, you have to click Actions and then select columns. We want to move all the options from the left side to the right side using the double-headed arrow, which gives all of the necessary data included in that file, and then save that to your computer. Finally, we obtain the last file, the power factor report. So in the end, we have these 6 files, which represent the entire electricity cost and usage picture for the whole municipality. In the next step, step 2, we need to prepare these files. Because remember, we downloaded the last 12 months of data to be sure we received any new data since our last update with no possibility of gaps. But we update our report every month, so we now need to delete the data that's already been included in past updates. Here's what a raw utility data file looks like. Each row represents one reading period for 1 meter and contains the site ID, description, and address of that meter, the time period covered by the reading, and then lots of other data. We only care about a few specific columns. The rest are shaded gray to show that they can be ignored. And just to mention, the reason some of the numbers are fuzzy is because those numbers are confidential to Valley View, so they've been obscured. In this first file, I recommend sorting by trans date, which correlates to the invoice date, which makes it easy to delete all of the rows you've already processed in past months. The key column here is usage, which is the energy used during that time period. Now here's an important tip. You'll find usage reported in different ways in different exports. You can ignore all of these values and use only the usage reported in this file. Now we follow the same steps to clean up the interval data file. And just one point, even though on the website we selected the data to be reported by the day, it's still reported here by the hour in this file, just so you're aware. We're going to skip over the details for the remaining 4 files since they're essentially the same as what we've already done. And again, you'll have a copy of these slides when you undertake this process on your own in the future. So moving on, we prepare the delivery costs, the energy costs, the load, and the power factor files. Now I need to make one important point here. The data that we've seen in all of these files is reported by the reading date, which is literally the date that someone went and read the meter. Since meters are read sporadically throughout the year, there generally won't be consistency with when these reading dates are or how many days they cover. To know what energy our buildings are using and to make meaningful comparisons, this data needs to be converted into monthly data. And here's an example of how that's done. So in this example, we have 2 reading periods, and we're interested in the usage for September. The first reading period was from August 20th to September 10th. So we retain the second half of that reading. The second reading was from September 11th to October 15th. So we keep the first 20 days, which are in September, out of the total 35 days from the reading. So then applying this formula, we can obtain the best picture of the usage for September. Now with that out of the way, the fun can begin because finally we're ready to extract meaningful information from all of this raw data. Most people will do this by choosing one of 3 approaches. First, you can manipulate the data and create graphical representations yourself using Excel, but this is really only realistic if you're doing very infrequent analysis and have a talent with spreadsheets. One of the main problems here is the reading period to monthly period conversion issue that we just talked about that has to be applied to every row in every file. So most people will either choose to import the data that we've prepared into a software package that's been purchased or into a tool that's hosted online, and then you can generate the results that you're interested in if you know what they are, or you can contract with a consultant who will take care of this entire process from downloading the data, preparing it, processing it, and providing the key results back to the municipality's facility and energy managers. But at the end of the day, your system or your consultant should be able to provide the following outputs. You should be able to make clear comparisons between your facilities to identify candidates for energy audits and energy efficiency retrofits. You should be able to easily make comparisons to historical data like the previous month, the previous year, the average of the last few years, and so forth to help catch spikes that may indicate an equipment malfunction. You should be able to adjust your data for weather factors. We expect to use more energy during a colder winter, for example, so that increased usage shouldn't be flagged as a concern. And finally, You should have all the energy numbers themselves available for immediate access at all times, both at the smallest resolution, being the meter and facility level, and at the other end of the spectrum at the grand total level, showing the key numbers for the municipality as a whole. To show an example of these results using our Valley View case study, we publish our monthly energy reports as a website with a tree structure, where you can access the relevant graphs and data tables at the grand total level, various sub-levels, so for example, all the buildings together, or all the lighting or wastewater meters, as well as subclass level being the type of facility, as well as at the facility and meter level. We also have here an alert page that shows any facility that's had a spike or drop in energy past a certain threshold, like 15% compared to the previous month, and a summary page that has all of the date normalized and summarized data ready to be downloaded in spreadsheet format. And we already saw this example of a facility comparison graph, which also shows how the relevant charges break down within each facility. So clearly City Hall here is the major consumer. And just to mention, these are sample graphs, not Valley Views, to maintain confidentiality. Now here again is an example of a usage graph. The usage is the dark blue line. The light blue shading in the background is the minimum, maximum, and average usage of the last 3 years. In this form we can easily see that January 2014, up here, has a spike in usage above the last 3 years of usage, so that may indicate an issue and warrant an investigation. The red line and shading in this graph represent cold weather, degree days, based on temperature data from the nearest weather station. In another representation, we can see the last 6 years of usage for each month compared side by side. So again, we can see the higher than average January usage. We can also see how we're using quite a bit less energy in the current year for July compared to the previous years. And finally, we present the actual date normalized and consolidated usage and cost numbers from which all the graphs are generated. So if you ever want to know the exact figures for last month or for the last year, for any facility or for the municipality as a whole, this data then is available without any work or delay for immediate action. That concludes my presentation for today. If you'd like to see some more examples of how to use your energy data, feel free to access the sample report from our website listed here. Or if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach me by email and we can schedule a time to chat. Bye for now.